Hello again, World History 2 students. Mr. Deegan here for another edition of VidNotes videos. We're going to tackle today Unit 3, Lesson 3. We're continuing with the Age of Exploration, and we're talking today about a global transfer of goods called the Columbian Exchange. The Columbian Exchange changed the way people eat. It changed the way people lived. And you need, for this lesson, your VidNotes packet as usual. Please turn to page 6, and we're going to be taking notes from page 6 and 7 of the VidNotes packet. We're going to be exploring the big question today, which is how did Columbian exchange affect the relationship between European and indigenous or native cultures? A review. Before we move on and define the Columbian Exchange, we're going to review what we've done previously in this unit. The motivations behind exploration, we define that as the 3 G's. The first G, gold. Merchants hope to profit from European demand for spices and resources. God, explorers wanted to diffuse or spread Christianity because European rulers felt a duty to continue the Crusades and convert those indigenous people to Christianity. The third G, glory. Competition was fierce among nations to establish worldwide empires and set up trading companies. Who were these European explorers who were motivated? Well, Portugal and Spain led the charge, and the first man to find a sea route to Asia was Vasco da Gama of Portugal. He found a sea route around Africa to India. Spain then responded with some of its own expeditions. Chris Columbus sails to the Caribbean. Hernando Cortez sails to Mexico to meet the Aztec. Francisco Pizarro sails to Peru, South America to meet the Inca Empire. And Ferdinand Magellan leads a crew that is the first to circumnavigate the earth. England's man is Sir Francis Drake. He leads an expedition that is the second to circumnavigate the globe. And France's man is Jacques Cartier. He leads an expedition into Canada and claims the St. Lawrence River and the area around Montreal for France. Lastly, the commercial revolution. Money and banking changes in the 1500s with all of this trading going on. As we said, there's competition for overseas markets, places to sell your products, and resources, raw materials that countries and economies need. New money and banking systems are created during the commercial revolution, and mercantilism forms. This is when colonies exist for the mother country's benefit. The colony has raw materials that are needed by the colonizing country because the colonizing country takes these raw materials and makes manufactured goods out of them and sells them back to their colonies, making a profit. That's our review. Now we delve into the Columbian Exchange itself. The Columbian Exchange is a term, an idea that was invented by this white-bearded man, Alfred Crosby. In 1972, the historian Crosby wrote a book called The Columbian Exchange to describe how Columbus's discovery of the New World in 1492 led to a hugely important global transfer of plants, animals, and diseases that historians were not studying until this time. And Crosby said, everyone was affected on Earth by the Columbian Exchange. Every society in some way changed, whether it be their diet, whether it be the way that they grew things or the way that they raised livestock, or maybe disease completely decimated a society. Who participated in this large Columbian Exchange? Well, the Old World and the New World both did. Let's define these areas. First, the Old World are the people and countries in Europe, Asia, and Africa. In other words, the Old World existed in the Eastern Hemisphere. The New World contained people and countries in North and South America. We also have to include the Caribbean islands because they are extremely important in the Columbian Exchange. And the New World is made up of countries in the Western Hemisphere, the hemisphere that hadn't been explored too much by the Eastern Hemisphere. What was exchanged in the Columbian Exchange? Let's talk about the important items. First, from the Old World, horses and cattle are sent to the New World, and they change the lifestyles of American Indians. You see this Native American with a horse. Important items from the New World that were sent to the Old World: corn, potatoes, tobacco, and tomatoes. They were all sent to the New World, and they changed European lifestyles. They changed the European diet. They changed the way that Europeans raised crops and livestock. Corn allowed an easy way for people raising livestock to feed those livestock. Also, the Columbian Exchange involved the transfer of diseases across the Atlantic Ocean. Diseases like smallpox, typhus, the whooping cough, and others. Smallpox was the most deadly of these European diseases. It was deadly for the Aztec, the Inca, and other American Indian groups. What did smallpox do that made it so deadly? Well, this virus, and you see it here, a diagram of it, it attacks blood cells, it attacks the skin and organs of your body, and it leads to blindness and respiratory failure. And this is a man lying in a bed. It looks like he has the smallpox virus because he has those red poxes on his skin. The consequences of smallpox in data form. The diseases of the Columbian Exchange, including smallpox, wipe out 50% to 90% of Native Americans, depending on what historian you ask. Now, the native population of central Mexico is an example of this complete wipeout. Let's look at this more closely. Hernando Cortez and his men reached central Mexico around 1500. Let's look at what happens to the Aztec population after that. So in 1519, the Aztec Empire is about 25 million strong. But look at what happens over the course of 100 years. About 100 years later, in 1605, the Aztec Empire only have 1 million people left. That's not because of Cortez's weapons and strong military. That is because of the smallpox that he and his fellow Spaniards brought to the Aztecs of central Mexico. Smallpox is a big deal. From the Columbian Exchange to the triangular trade. Now, these were actual trade routes where goods were sold and bought. Now, the Columbian Exchange is not a direct trade route. It's just the overall transfer of these goods and ideas and diseases and people, as we'll see shortly. So, why is it named this? Well, these trade routes make the shape of a triangle. Makes sense, right? So let's go through the triangular trade step by step. First, step one. Step one, the Europeans take goods to Africa. Here, shaded, is the continent of Europe, and the Europeans trade guns, ammo, and manufactured cloth to Africa. Mostly societies in West